Good morning, class. Today we are answering the question, should parents be able to genetically modify their children? So the article we are reading today is, should parents be able to choose traits for their children? This article was posted on March 17th, 2020 by Claire Jocelyn Mankboot. Genes are the instruction code for all of an individual's features. Genetic modification, for example, altering the genes of an organism, has been debated about for centuries. It can be used to treat medical conditions and to shape how a person develops. The movie Gattaca depicts a world where characteristics can be selected before birth. Some modern day companies are able to modify genetic data. For example, CRISPR Therapeutics edits genes to cure diseases, for example, hemoglobinopathies, cancer, and diseases of the liver, lung, and muscle. With gene editing growing more popular, it is important to consider the ethics of trait selection, as it could be a future goal for gene editing businesses and research. The first section or subcategory in this article is diminished genetic variation and environmental changes. Parents should not be able to choose from a menu of preferred traits for their children. This could hinder children from carrying unique genes and could thus eventually reduce genetic variation, which is necessary for the human species to continue and live when environmental changes suddenly take place. Parents would choose traits that conform to societal standards in order to grant their children characteristics that they believe are beneficial. While they might have somewhat good intentions for wanting their child to be successful in society, they are overall limiting diversity in the human population. The less genetic variation a population has, the less able it is to adapt to environmental changes. Humanity should not give up surviving major environmental changes as a species for being advantaged as in society. While this would take hundreds of years and generations for genetic variation to significantly diminish, this process should not start at all. So here, this author is telling us that the process should not start at all, obviously, in her opinion. She feels that as environmental changes happen, people normally are able to adapt. And she thinks that if we keep selecting genes for human beings that are unborn, we will have less variation in the genes and therefore be less able to adapt. The next section is family discord. Furthermore, the chosen traits that parents think are advantageous might be hated by their child. While children have all their traits and features attributed to their parents because of genes, this occurs naturally and without the will of the parents. Allowing parents to choose their child would turn out uh, allowing parents to choose how their child would turn out could cause tension in the family. Parents may want their daughter to be athletic and thus give her a muscular frame, but the daughter might not want to be involved with sports and could dislike the body her parents purposefully chose for her because it reminds her that she did not fulfill their expectations. Likewise, parents might want their daughter to be a model and thus give her a thin frame. However, the daughter might want to join the military, but could be limited in how strong she can be. Giving parents the ability to choose certain traits for their children allows these children to blame and possibly even hate their parents for traits that disadvantage them in what they want to do. This world is not meant to be perfect, especially because everyone has different definitions and perceptions of perfection. Ideas of perfection should not be imposed on children, as they might develop differing ideas and values of perfection. Genetic enhancement would place too much pressure and would establish expectations that are too high for people to deal with. In the movie Gattaca, the character Jerome has enhanced genes that made him seem like an Olympic swimmer. However, when he won second place in a swimming competition, he tried to kill himself because he felt like such a failure. Placing this intense degree of pressure on people is not beneficial to society nor to humans. Physical and intellectual advantages should not be so valued that society cares more about these advantages than their mental health. So here, once again,
she is disagreeing with the idea of changing genes. Here she is claiming, what if a child is given genes selected by their parents that he or she doesn't want? So that makes an excellent point as well. The next subcategory is raising the standards for effort and striving. Some may believe that genetic enhancement will allow users to have better traits, which will make genetic enhancement replace valued work ethic. However, this is not completely true. Individuals will still be responsible for working hard and succeeding, and they will have to continue putting in effort in everything they do and continue striving for success with enhanced genes. In the present day, certain standards are expected from people who come from certain families. For example, when a husband and a wife both have Ivy League educations and both come from educated families, it is expected that their child is smart. The child still has the responsibility to work hard in their studies and extracurriculars. The child is not excused from a lot of effort simply because he or she has the genetic predisposition for traits that could allow him or her to excel in school. When a husband and a wife are both athletes, it is expected that their child is athletic. The child continues to have the responsibility to work out and practice a lot. The child is not excused from the immense effort simply because he or she has the genetic predisposition for traits that could allow him or her to excel in athletics. If anything, these children that have to fulfill certain expectations must be put in an enormous amount of work and time into whatever they are expected to excel in: school, sports, music, etc. When society assumes that certain people have a genetic predisposition to be successful in certain fields, society will hold them to higher standards, and these people will have a responsibility for their performance in these certain fields. These expectations will be given will be even more concrete when they have genetic enhancement. When society knows that certain people have special genes to give them advantages in certain fields, society would hold them to the highest standards. And those people will still have a responsibility for their performance in these fields. Society will definitely assume that children with enhanced genes are destined to be successful. So these children must put forth the effort and dedication to fulfill these standards. Here, our author is making the point that if you have two intelligent parents or two athletic parents, it's kind of assumed by the society surrounding this family that the child will have the same attributes of the parents. But now they're saying if you add to that the genetic predisposition, there will be a lot of pressure on these new children with the predisposition to be smarter or the predisposition to be more athletic to do just that. Next, societal divisions. As a result of genetic enhancement, there will be new divisions in society. Race today still causes issues because of intolerant and ignorant people. Adding enhanced genes as another aspect upon which people can create a further divided hierarchy in society will cause tension, pressure, and problems that can be avoided. People without enhanced genes could eventually be seen as disabled because they might not be perceived as being able to perform as well as those with enhanced genes. People with disabilities are protected by the Americans with Disabilities Act, which prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities. People without enhanced genes will probably also be protected with a similar act to prohibit governments and businesses from treating people differently simply because they do not have enhanced genes. However, just because de jure discrimination of people without enhanced genes might not take place does not mean that de facto discrimination will not take place. People without enhanced genes will inevitably be discriminated against. Furthermore, genetic modification would deepen inequalities in society. Only the rich, who already have access to good education, have the resources for optimizing health and have more opportunities for work and sports, would be able to afford the presumably costly procedures of the genetic selection and modification. Thus, benefits brought about by the genetic modification would benefit a group who are already advantaged. Here, the author is arguing that there will be a divide in the hierarchy of people, saying that people with genetically modified genes will be considered superior, and people who do not have that advantage will be considered inferior and treated differently. Application for public and global health. Genetic modification would violate the professional responsibility for doctors to do no harm, as it reinforces the need to conform to society and adds enormous pressures to fulfill expectations. However, genetic enhancement would not violate this responsibility in cases where doctors are preventing deadly diseases with a genetic component. Preventing deadly diseases would not interfere with the professional ability to do no harm. Ultimately, there are better ways to lengthen life expectancy, reduce disease, and strengthen intelligence than turning to the genetic modification. Rather than using technology for selecting genes, which may only be available to the rich, developed nations should address other issues first, such as malaria, which is ramping areas in Africa and South Asia. Instead of pooling an insane amount of money into developing technology for genetic enhancement, efforts towards addressing global health should be implemented instead. Life expectancy in a country like the United States of America does not need to be lengthened even more when other countries have much shorter life expectancies, such as Tanzania, which has a life expectancy of about 65 years. Nations should not try to improve situations that only the top 1% can experience through genetic enhancement when the majority of people have other issues that should be solved first. Developing and distributing vaccines, improving living and sanitary conditions, and making healthy food available are some ways for reducing diseases overall in the world, especially in third world countries. Making healthcare accessible to everyone is a step that the nation must take first before even thinking about allowing genetic enhancement. If everyone can't have healthcare, how can the average person have a genetic enhancement? So here we hear the author's opinion coming through very strong, claiming what she feels the government's money should be spent on as opposed to genetic enhancement. And here is our author's conclusion. While fetal genetic modification can produce some benefits, there are much larger, potentially detrimental means harmful, issues it could bring about. Because parents are likely to select genes that provide societal advantages, the human race would fixate on a path to diminish genetic variation, which is disadvantageous when there are environmental changes. Genetic modification may create family tension as parents impose their expectations over the child's bodies and futures. This may result in intense pressure and heightened standards that could destroy these children's mental health. Genetic modification technology to allow parents to select traits for their children should not be implemented, as there are other issues that deserve more attention. Time and money could be focused on other more pressing issues, for example, malaria, that are faced by a larger portion of the world than the top 1% of the population that would be able to afford child trait selection. And here are the references she used for her article. A little information about our author. Again, this was her article here definitely showed her opinion. Claire is a nursing student at University of Pennsylvania. Currently, she is a clinical medicine research coordinator for a study testing the effectiveness of a smartphone app in reducing insomnia in older adults, a copy editor for a textbook about the academic entrepreneurship, and a coordinator for her own pilot project testing smartphone-delivered compassion training to healthcare professionals. That was a little bit of information about our author. So I'm going to go back again and remind you which article we were reading. Should parents be able to choose traits for their children? Thank you so much for following along. I was not recording.